consumer behavior. Our CEO, Chris, is on the line with us as well. He's the writer and researcher and will be the speaker for today. Hi, Chris.
Good morning, Bradley.
I hope you're ready for another stellar turnout. Before we get started, I just want to cover off on a couple of house cleaning items. Obviously, everyone on the line has been muted and is in listen-only mode. But of course, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to shoot them over into the question box. We're going to try and run for about 45 minutes today and then save time at the end for questions. Also, just for everyone that joined us, there's going to be a recording of today's discussion that will be sent out, and we'll have that packaged and out to you hopefully by the end of the day today. But if not, it will be in your inbox for first thing Monday. And then, so yeah, I guess without any further ado, welcome to How to Curb Promiscuous Customer Behavior. Chris, I'm sure everyone's eager to get started. So without any further delays, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Nealand.
I'll pause for the standing ovation. Please stay seated. It's a privilege to be with you guys again today. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, as I have really been thinking about the elements of customer promiscuity and how do we engender greater loyalty, and then specifically should loyalty programs play a role in accomplishing that objective. So I want to start with talking to you about my first job out of grad school. I had the chance to relocate my young family to Raleigh, North Carolina, and work with John Deere. And when I took the job, I knew that John Deere was this iconic brand. I mean, it was part of the appeal of taking the job. But I was pretty clueless in regards to the degree of passion that people actually have for this brand. It became clearer to me over time as I started to walk the halls and see different things, photographs largely, of stuff that had been mailed in to headquarters. And yes, this was before email and before social media, so people used to take photographs on things called film and Polaroids and put them in things called envelopes and mail them using things called stamps. And it was fun to kind of walk the hallways and to get a sense for things like John Deere themed birthday parties, right? And Johnny turned 5, or my husband just turned 60, and we hosted a party, and they would share with us the things that they had decorated. It would be pretty common to get photographs of kids that were playing on John Deere branded toys. And it would also be pretty common for homeowners or for farmers to send us photographs of maybe their John Deere mailbox out front, displaying their John Deere pride. But then things, in my opinion, kind of got out of hand. People would start to show how much money they had spent and how much time they had spent and exorbitant amounts of creativity to do things like brand entire rooms with their love for John Deere. They would do things from their toilets to their refrigerators, their bathrooms to their kitchens would start to be made over with John Deere. You go out to their garages and they would take their motorcycles or their cars and brand them John Deere. You go out to their yards and they would redo their play sets with John Deere. And then, of course, the ultimate sign of brand devotion, they would tattoo their bodies with John Deere. And not just, tasteful little logos, but complete panoramic landscapes of their farm or of their yard. So, as a young marketer, I was just fascinated by all of this. I wanted to understand, where does that kind of brand love come from? What can companies do to foster it? And perhaps most importantly, are there things that can simply be copied so that anybody that does what John Deere does could enjoy that kind of success? So, I've learned a lot of things about brand affinity since leaving John Deere. I've had the chance to co-author a book that talks all about how to create cult strategies and achieve cult branding. And today we're going to talk about a specific tactic, a tactic called loyalty programs, and what is its role in achieving a cult brand status. Loyalty programs, in my opinion, are very tricky because you can find so many good and so many bad examples. Many of the most beloved brands, like John Deere, they don't have loyalty programs, and yet they achieve this insane degree of success. Companies that we would all say are indisputable cult brands, Nike, Apple, Coca-Cola, they do not have loyalty programs. But then on the other side of that coin, there are these highly adored, iconic brands that do have forms of membership-based programs, brands like Starbucks or Amazon or Costco. So it really begs the question, what's the difference? Whose example should I follow here? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. I've invested over a decade of my career specifically dealing with loyalty programs. My team at both this agency and the one before, I think would say that we are firm believers that loyalty programs can be powerful tools. But I think we'd also say that most of the brands that have them don't need them. They are probably unnecessary if the brand was more honest about what it was best at and what it was trying to achieve. I think we would also say that most brands that have them aren't using them very well. So oftentimes the problem with loyalty isn't the device or the tactic, it's the expectations from the implementer of the program. Too many purveyors of different types of loyalty systems either overpromise and then underdeliver because they're touted as this cure-all elixir that's going to fix whatever is ailing your brand. As a result of buying into that overpromise, the brands that have them grow disenfranchised because they trusted these so-called loyalty experts. They invested heavily, not just in their promise, but too often they're also selling a platform, so they're not necessarily unbiased in how it's done. It's do it using our tools. And too often brand leaders see no real positive impact, or they don't see the positive impact for a meaningful period of time. So unfortunately, most brands have simply adopted loyalty solutions that aren't working, and it's getting worse, not better, because of the prevalence of the loyalty offering. The simplest truth is that loyalty programs made the most sense when very few businesses offered them. That way that you could benefit from the novelty and the uniqueness of the program, and those were really key contributors to their success. But now many brand leaders are getting into the loyalty space more out of a sense of obligation, or they're maintaining their loyalty offering as is out of this fear of the sunk cost. Well, I've got to keep doing it because of all the money and time we've spent to get us to this point. The truth is loyalty programs have evolved drastically, and they need to give consumers this added reason to choose you. And unfortunately, more people are doing loyalty today, in our opinion, out of the fear of absence of not having one, and that you're going to be deselected because everybody else in your category has one and you don't. And, doing something because everybody else is doing it is the worst reason to really do just about anything, right? And when you get into really mature loyalty program categories like hospitality or grocery or apparel or financial services, we see that these businesses are really kind of reaping what they sowed because they have become so hyper-promotional that their consumers now have this heightened sense of what's in it for me, and this attitude of demanding more and more value above and beyond the core value that should be delivered just from the actual product and service that you provide. So if we had just done a better job of providing really great products and services, we wouldn't have had to create all these incremental excuses and plus shop us because you get this, that, and the other, and we've created this unsustainable system. Loyalty programs, I think everybody would be familiar with the stat. They're so prevalent that there's now 3.3 billion U.S. members enrolled at last count. That equates to about 29 programs per household. You may say that's great. That means consumers love to enroll in programs. While I would agree that getting people to sign up is maybe now easy, getting them to engage and actually actively participate has never been harder. And the most recent facts from Colloquy research would suggest that over 60% of members that belong to a program have no active participation in that program. So you see the same things happen with email. A lot of emails are going out, but open and click-through rates have tanked. You see the same thing with social media. We've acquired huge followers, but now their engagement with our posts is lower. Loyalty programs are probably the worst of all those types of engagement tactics. If there was any silver lining, if there's any good news, I'd say about this overly saturated loyalty landscape is that we are crystal clear about what exactly customers don't like. There has now been over a decade of research that has been consistently clear, in my opinion, about what causes people to disengage with loyalty programs. And they can kind of be distilled into these four areas. Either the programs are overly complex. You have too many suites of benefits as opposed to one dominant one. I always go back, I think Southwest Airlines did a great job of it's just about get free travel, right? That's what everybody wants with an airline loyalty program. Yet if you look at United Airlines or American Airlines programs, there's over a dozen benefits that they're just not getting the bang for the buck on, because what people really want is free travel. So they could probably kill over half of those benefits and get members to be happier with the program because you've simplified it. This idea of delayed gratification of rewards has always been a piss-off factor. I don't want to get 9 haircuts so that I can get the 10th one free. I want something far more short-term than that. The lack of personalization and relevant communication, it just boggles my mind that there are brands that have had enviable amounts of customer information for long periods of time, and they still don't do things that help their customers feel valued and unique as if you're talking to me as a person. And then this last one is kind of this group, I've labeled it provide minimal tangible value. That could either be fiscal, like the math just doesn't make sense. You're asking me to spend, thousands of dollars to get a $5 discount, so that it's just not rich enough. But there's also social currency that's becoming increasingly important, where I just don't see any benefits of being a member. I've belonged for a long time, and it seems like everybody gets what I get. So that tangible value is no longer just monetary. It can lean into social currency as well. So these 4 known barriers of or customer disappointments, at a minimum, should serve as a great jumping off point for any brand leader that is considering a loyalty program solution. Simply don't do any of these 4 things. It could almost be that simple. Build a program that avoids those pitfalls. Let me talk to brand leaders just for a moment, and the people that have taken the time to join this call. I assume most of you have one of 2 questions regarding loyalty programs. You are either saying, like company A here, I have a program, but I wish I didn't. Because for you, your program has likely become very cumbersome and very expensive to maintain, or the points liability has become so sizable that it's scaring you or your investors, Wall Street, or the performance metrics in terms of moving customer behavior is really underwhelming. And it just seems like you're spinning your wheels and spending lots and lots of money, and you're not seeing a lot of incremental benefit from it, right? So I'm assuming some of you on the call are in that bucket. Or maybe others are like company B. You don't have a program, but you feel like maybe you should. Maybe you're feeling pressure internally because a new boss or somebody's come in and says, why don't we have one? Or maybe you just keep reading more and more about it. You think it sounds like a good idea. Or as I said, maybe you're just now one of the last holdouts and you're deciding you need to get on that bandwagon and do it, because if you don't, they're going to go to your competitors who do offer one. I think company B is in a more enviable position than company A, because you don't have any big legacy investment that you're still trying to justify. But you do need to proceed with caution. I'm going to share with you today 7 key considerations that will allow, I think, people in either group there to properly evaluate whether or not there are better alternatives to engaging customers and getting a greater share of their wallets. I'm really going to try to do my best to be unbiased and just present the facts as I see them and allow you to draw your own conclusions about what's best for your business. So let's get into it. The first key consideration, and I struggle if these are in order of priority or not. I think the short answer is they're probably not. I've seen too many situations where what I've labeled as the 5th thing here is actually a higher for different brands. So don't rank order these. I just listed them by what was convenient when I assembled the slides. So brand differentiation. Does your business really need something extra in order to help it stand apart? Or do you already possess sufficient enough brand equity that makes you a highly desirable alternative, right? So this comes down to, how are you choosing to overcome commoditization? That's really the critical question here. And that if your bet is that you can either A, you're not commoditized, or that you think you can overcome commoditization with alternative means, do that first. But if you have tried by hook and by crook a whole host of things and you continue to swim in a sea of sameness, then perhaps, yes, adding a loyalty program, bolting it on to your brand value proposition makes sense. So, for example, if you are Ross or Marshalls or Dollar General, right, your business investments should be all tied up into what are you doing to remain the low-cost provider, not a loyalty program. Or if you're Samsung or Google or Sony, you should be making huge investments in product R&D and product innovation, right? Not loyalty programs. It's very difficult for brands that are going to excel and choose to compete on either operational excellence or product innovation to also excel at a loyalty program, because that is going to require a level of customer intimacy that you're just not famous for, and that's not what got you to where you are today, and I think you'll likely struggle. Alternatively, if you're a Marriott, or if you're a TGI Fridays, or if you're the local dry cleaner down the street, you are likely competing in an extremely cluttered category that has very few discernible differences, right? So because consumers consider your offering is very comparable to other readily available alternatives, then that group may need to rely upon a loyalty program to help it stand out. I remember several years ago working on a customer engagement project for AMC movie theaters, and I thought it was an interesting challenge because the movie theater business is essentially the same, right? They offer the same movies, they offer largely the same concessions, and aside from maybe upgraded seats, it's kind of the same theater experience. And a lot of what they put money into, like super digital Dolby, enhanced surround sound, the common customer wouldn't know the difference between 5.0, 5.1, 5.2, sound quality. So, AMC had a choice. Are we going to compete via discounts and lowering prices and doing price promotions to get people to go to the theater, or which I think we'd all agree is a big race to the bottom, or could a loyalty program help them differentiate? And so that's what they chose to do, and the team came up with, I think, really smart ideas that did provide some level of discounting, but now much more discerning in how those discounts were distributed and to whom. But there's also some really cool consumer engagement platforms that were tied to both, I think, the social and the pop culture aspects of just watching movies and being a movie fan and sharing information about your favorite films or your favorite actors or opinions about who's going to win the Academy Award or how excited about various upcoming new releases there was going to be, etc. The program's called Stubbs, and I would encourage you to check it out. It's named after like a movie ticket stub. And I think that the leadership of that brand would now say that Stubbs is a competitive advantage. It's a key motivator that keeps their best customers coming back to AMC as opposed to just going to whatever theater might be closest to their house. So in order for a loyalty program to truly help differentiate your brand, it really has to seamlessly integrate into your primary brand value proposition. And it could be as simple as this. Ask yourself one of two questions. Do people shop you mainly because you are cheap or convenient? Or do people shop you because you provide some kind of extra service or enhanced customer care that makes them love who you are and what you do? If your primary competitive advantage deals with price or convenience, then in most cases, your loyalty program will add cost and complexity that makes you less cheap and less convenient. So be very careful that you're not building something that is counter to the fulfillment of that value proposition. If you're going to invest in a loyalty solution, make sure that it removes cost and removes time from your offering. Walmart is probably the best example of a retailer that plays the cost game and in some degree the convenience game. And they really shunned the idea of a loyalty program for many, many years. I actually was sad to see them cave, and they have now launched a loyalty program. It's a bit of a cheat. It's not even really Walmart's program. It's MasterCard or Visa. I forget who their financial service provider is, but it's funded by them. And it's really just an enhanced discount card. It provides added savings, which in that sense, that is perfectly aligned with Walmart. Shop us to save more money. It doesn't slow down the line because you just are swiping your tender the way you would to buy a purchase, and all of the magic happens, offline behind the scenes. So in that sense, it's a foundational element to Walmart's brand, but I think of it just as a big missed opportunity because Walmart didn't do anything special with that program, and it's to be determined what, if anything, they're going to do with that, the mountains of data that they're going to receive as a result of having it. I think Colt's point of view is that you can't just be about incremental savings and enhanced speed. You have to have a plus factor. There's got to be something that engages consumers, gets them to aspire to do something more than just save money and have some sort of emotional connection. So I actually think a better example of a low-cost retailer would be what Home Depot's done. Because what Home Depot has decided to do is to invest heavily in convenience with over, close to 2,000 stores and this really robust website. But rather than compete with or dilute that primary value proposition by trying to create a company-wide loyalty offering, they got very surgical. And they dissected their individual businesses and then chose how best to compete by each specific business. So, for example, paint is a highly commoditized category, but they chose to compete in paint by investing in some really interesting in-store purchase tools that allow you to pick the right color, and investing in a private label strategy with Behr paint and in advertising to get people to want Behr paint, so that if you want Behr paint, the only place you can get it is at Home Depot. They solved that problem without a loyalty program. The exact same thing with rigid power tools. If they wanted to thrive in the power tool space, they had lots of choices about how to do so. They invested in a private label brand called Rigid, and then they spent marketing dollars to really effectively create desire and preference for that brand. Conversely, they have other categories that are also highly commoditized, like lumber and live goods. And in those cases, they chose to compete by creating loyalty offerings. So professional contractors are really the power users of lumber. So the Home Depot built a loyalty program specifically for professional contractors, and it's called Pro Extra. And that program gives tradespeople a lot of added benefits, special financing, the ability to get work site delivery, the tracking of purchase orders for POs and passing costs on to customers, and et cetera. So these member benefits make buying bulk lumber from the Home Depot better than what a competitor might offer. Similarly, they acknowledge there's not a lot of difference between the Home Depot's plants and plants that you'd find at dozens of nurseries there in your local area. So in that case, Home Depot chose to create a garden club specifically for their green-thumbed customers that want to have some enhanced know-how or seasonal planting advice and receive special offers. So they're really niche loyalty offerings, and oftentimes that's better because, A, the business objectives are more discrete and identifiable and measurable, but also the investments required to really move the needle with niche departments or niche customers is far easier and more manageable. So now let's talk about the other side of that equation. Let's assume you're not playing the cheap and convenient card, but now you're playing the extra services or great customer care card, right? Many brands fall into this category: high-end hotels, premium grocery stores like Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, or luxury apparel brands or jewelry. These kinds of categories really win because of the promise of something extra service, extra care. And for these types of brands, loyalty offerings have to be far more engaging than just earning points and them for a discount. So, in this case, the ultimate goal for marketers should be treat different customers differently. Customers are going to differ in two big ways. They're going to differ both in regards to what they want from you, and they're going to differ in regards to what they're worth to you. So really great service brands understand those differences, and then they use their loyalty solutions to modify their interactions based on those customer preferences, as well as they find really discreet ways to overinvest in the customers who are worth more. So this is not a democratic system where all customers are created equal. There's got to be a customers who do more, get more kind of mentality. Secondly, brands playing in this kind of space need to offer programs that are more experiential than they are transactional. This space should not be about punch cards that offer free products or services after you buy 8, 9, or 10. Rather, you need to fill your programs with exclusive access and aspirational benefits that will really help people do things that they couldn't enjoy otherwise on their own. I think MasterCard's Priceless campaign is just a perfect example of a good campaign, but also they build things that simply money cannot buy, and they allow that their members to use their loyalty currency to access those privileges. And then finally, these types of brands really must align their loyalty offering with things that amplify that core brand promise. So this cannot be tangential. This cannot be something that you do. This has to become something that you are. So if you are a premium brand, everything about your program must feel premium, as if it's your most important brand asset. I think maybe the best example here of a loyalty program that really dovetails just so perfectly into a broader brand promise is Harley Davidson. Rather than making big investments in acquisition-based advertising, Harley Davidson spends 85% of its marketing budget on its current owners, getting them to buy merchandise, getting them to upgrade their bikes with accessories, getting them to buy multiple bikes, getting them to get their friends and their family to ride bikes. So if you want to become the kind of cult brand that Harley is and enjoy the kind of customer advocacy that they enjoy, then I would suggest do the kinds of marketing that they do. And one of the things that Harley did really, really well was create a loyalty program all the way back in 1983. Right? So this is one of the oldest loyalty programs around. It's known as HOG, which is an acronym for the Harley Owner Group. And it is just a perfect example of an experiential-based program with a whole suite of value-based member benefits, a sense of exclusivity, events, community building, recognition programs, special services like roadside assistance. So, this is any brand because this brand thrives on living a life without cages, thrives to get us to enjoy the freedom of the open road. Their loyalty program is hand in glove about getting people to make getting out onto the road really easy. I continue to be amazed at how successful this program is for Harley, going on 20 years. And I'm equally amazed, or 30 years I should say, and I'm equally amazed how few other brands have actually successfully copied their playbook, which is just out there in the open for us all to steal from, and yet they don't do nearly as good a job as Harley does. I need to move on. The next principle deals with customer anonymity. Does your existing business model allow you to collect personally identifiable customer data at the point of purchase, similar to how a hotel, a catalog company, an e-commerce company would? If so, your anonymity concerns are very, very low. And you don't really need a loyalty program the way that other businesses do who suffer from anonymous transactions. But I sometimes marvel why airlines and hotel and rental car companies are innovators in the loyalty space, because they don't need one. They already know, they already can tie every transaction back to a household. In so many ways, we should really just think of a loyalty program as a Trojan horse designed to coax customers to part with their data so that you can then use CRM strategies to do all the heavy lifting and actually change their behavior. So the upfront effort and the expense required to entice people to enroll is really just a small fraction of the resources that are required to really maximize a loyalty program. The bigger challenge is figuring out how to best use analytics to turn that data into, the stuff that you capture into meaningful insights, and to develop then marketing and merchandising and promotional strategies that would exploit those insights. The goal of the loyalty program is not to get high enrollment, it's to get active engagement. And to achieve that, know that you need to get metrics, you need to know share of wallet, customer segmentation and migration strategies, value tiers, customer investment strategies tied to how do we get an upsell, cross-sell, win-back, and really how can you now measure the effectiveness of the entire marketing communications toolbox by knowing how to measure ROI. I think that my team is most often surprised by how ill-prepared executives are for the fully loaded cost associated with a really great loyalty program. At best, companies are calculating the cost to administer a program or maybe manage the points liability, but achieving great customer engagement comes with a price tag, and loyalty programs are among the most expensive business strategies that you can invest in. You might want to start thinking about gaining meaningful customer relationships like paying a college tuition. College tuition is expensive, but people pay it and they choose to go to college because they believe that that tuition is a worthwhile investment in their future. It will arm them with tools and with experience necessary to succeed in a really crowded marketplace. That is true with the loyalty program as well. One of the biggest costs associated with loyalty programs is the data itself. It's expensive to collect and it's expensive to maintain. So always ask yourself, how little information do I need in order to make the most informed decision? We recommend that you get 5 pieces of information. First and last name, phone number, email with consent to use, and postal code or zip code. With those 5 core pieces of data on your customer record, you can personalize messages, you can communicate directly, and you can geo-target. You can then also append dozens of relevant data fields from third-party sources. Now, admittedly, that ancillary information is much more readily available in the States than it is in Canada, but you can still consider other types of strategies that allow you to get smarter over time, rather than create a really cumbersome enrollment form that will suppress activation at the front end. The whole purpose is to get to a point where over time you have this really rich intelligence regarding demographics, psychographics, and behavioral data that will allow you to really know who your best customers are and what they want from you. And that is impossible to do in a business model that operates with anonymous transactions. The third criteria deals with the transaction frequency. A general rule of thumb is that if the average consumer transactions for your category are 8 to 10 times a year, or if your best customers are transacting with you directly at least 4 times a year, then your business is right for a loyalty program. If frequency is lower than that, then consumers tend to ignore loyalty offerings. So automobile and appliance manufacturers, mattress companies, home builders, furniture stores, those are poor candidates for traditional loyalty programs. while hair salons, sandwich shops, yogurt stores, gas stations, pet stores, those are great candidates. Most loyalty programs are based on a spend more, get more philosophy, but better programs are really designed to change consumer behavior rather than just reward it. So we should find a way to incentivize incremental behavior and ideally even ignore less desirable behavior that's already happening. So I'll give you an example. Several years ago, I worked on a loyalty program for a large grocer in the Midwestern United States. And when we got there, their management team was really bemoaning the ineffectiveness of their loyalty program, and they were jealous at how well Kroger was doing with their loyalty program. And it didn't take long to discover the problem. The problem was that their loyalty program wasn't solving their business challenge. You see that for this particular grocer, their primary customers were using their store as a grab and go. Their average transactions were well below $100, and customers were really just prone to go there on their way home from work for a fill-up trip to grab a rotisserie chicken or a gallon of milk or some veggies for a salad on their way home to dinner. But what the store really wanted was customers to use it for a big weekend stock-up trip. But their program was really generic. It was simply you'll get 10 points for every dollar you spend, and they accumulate over time, and you could eventually redeem those for a rebate check. So we changed the whole thing. We called it this 1, 2, 3, 4 cashback program. And that meant that customers got nothing for any single transaction under $100. We did not want to reward that kind of behavior. It was already happening, and we didn't need to pour dollars into it. We redeployed the dollars that were rewarding that behavior into richer rewards that went towards 1% instant rebates, cashback, on purchases over $100, 2% on purchases over $200, 3% on $300, and 4% on purchases over $400. So now we were aligning the breadth and the power of the loyalty program against the behavior we wanted most, which was to get customers to come in and shop and put $400 worth of groceries in their basket. So if your primary business challenge is to get the average customer or the average number of customer visits up, then build a frequency-based reward structure and really exploit CRM strategies. If your real growth opportunity is to get your current customers who are coming in at a sufficient clip to spend more, then don't reward frequency, create spend thresholds. And if your ultimate goal is to simply improve your cult advocacy, get more word of mouth, reduce the amount of money that you have to spend on mass advertising, then create a program that's rich in experiential rewards, social media content, branded events, sponsorships, etc., and make it less about monetary incentives. The fourth consideration for loyalty really deals with your assortment. You know, how robust is the portfolio of products and services that you're trying to sell? The smaller your assortment, the less appealing a loyalty program is going to be. And that's because there's really only 4 ways to make money, right? You can get more customers, you can have them visit more often, you can get them to buy more stuff, or you can get them to pay a higher margin. And loyalty programs are very poor solutions for the first one of those, of get more customers. That's why we call them loyalty programs and not new customer acquisition programs. Rarely, if ever, has the existence of a loyalty program been the reason why someone chooses to shop you in the first place. However, once customers have selected you, loyalty programs can be really great at getting people to visit more often. And if you have a large enough assortment, they're even better at getting you to sell more products and services. And they're also really great at getting you to spend more margin. So, pretend for a moment that you're a convenience store and you sell 3 brands of cola, a private label brand for 99 cents, an RC Cola for $1.19, and Pepsi for $1.49. Loyalty currency can be used very effectively to motivate program members to purchase the private label brand. You can do 2-tier pricing, you can do double points, different types of direct consumer incentives. You can also use loyalty program CRM tools to speak directly to people who are shopping you primarily for soda and encourage them to now go down other aisles, like buy some salty snacks, or you could encourage existing people who are coming in once a week to buy a 6-pack to buy 2 6-packs because beverage consumption has to be one of those things that's very easy to manipulate. So in either case, these highly targeted communications and your loyalty currency can reward incremental behavior far better than some mass discount that's promoted in a flyer or put on the front sign of the store that would really reward a margin eroding offer to every single person that came in to take advantage of it, even if they were coming and planning on paying full price to begin with. Conversely, if you have a limited number of products and services or you don't have a good, better, best sort of product mix that has varying margins, then really proceed with caution about the world of loyalty programs. The demonstrated ability to cross-sell and upsell is so often critical to how the programs will remain sustainable and be self-funding. If you are absolutely intent on pursuing one, regardless of the size of your assortment, then really focus on order size benefits that make it worthwhile for people to buy more than they normally would. Number 5 deals with your culture. And this is a very important one. How customer-centric is your boss, is the executive team? Because perhaps better than any other device, loyalty programs can really reduce customer attrition and reverse downward migration groups. But you have to have an organization that's really well-versed in CRM principles and in loyalty marketing best practices. And they have to have an appreciation that mastering those disciplines comes with a very steep learning curve. And understanding the intricacies of point-of-sale systems and data hygiene and database management and customer lifetime value is far more complicated than just doing traditional advertising and traditional media strategies. A few years ago, brands could get away with treating loyalty as just this program that some group within the company did. But that's because the programs were based on these economic levers, not the new emotional levers that we're talking about that really evokes customer intimacy. Today, programs have become so ubiquitous and customers have become so jaded and the competition has reached such parity that this having a team work on loyalty just doesn't work. Loyalty in the 21st century is an all play. IT, advertising, ops, customer care, store associates, everyone has to be on board and do their part. So as you consider your company's culture, watch carefully for 3 types of audiences that we think can hinder success most. The first are these pessimistic snipers within the C-suite who are just looking for every missed projection or every customer complaint that will really sabotage your efforts. And those snipers just get louder and louder as points liabilities increase and as administration costs grow over time. If the CFO or somebody else in the C-suite just is not on board, you got a tough road to hoe. Secondly, the frontline employees. They are arguably your single most important audience because they are going to be encouraging or frankly discouraging members to participate. So they must understand the program's advantages, and they may even need to be possibly incentivized to try to get more people to fully participate. And then finally, franchise operators. They are so often too far removed from the epicenter of customer engagement that they lack really the understanding of, is this even working or not? So instead, they usually are orienting themselves on these short-term sales incentives, and they don't appreciate that loyalty programs tend to be more of this slow rising tide that raises all ships rather than these tsunamis that come in with a really rich, mass media steep discount. So franchisees operators require a lot of access and a lot of buy-in in order to believe, and maybe even they need part of these pilot programs so that their own successes and their own people can say, you should do this because here's what it did for me. Number 6 deals with the promotional sensitivity. I'll go very quickly here. Have you ever really evaluated why your customers actually aren't shopping you? Is it really because you're too expensive, or is it because of some other obstacle that's associated with why you're being deselected? I remember earlier in my career, I sent out a direct mail piece where we were doing a promotion, and the offer was supposed to be this amazing sale for $49.99. And the printer screwed it up, and I failed to catch the error, and the postcard went out promoting it for $4.99. So my bosses and everybody was completely freaking out because we thought we were going to be forced to honor this coupon that was essentially 90% off, but we were shocked how many coupons were actually redeemed. So despite this accidental, ridiculous offer that we could never sustainably replicate, it didn't make people come in and buy. So clearly, we had other issues that needed to be addressed. And so we can't expect loyalty programs to fix substantive problems with your products or services delivery. But if you do have a great business and you do have customers that just need a little extra incentive to increase their usage of your products or services, then assess how easily persuaded can they be with various tiers of offers or richness of offering. And if it works well, then a loyalty program can be a very effective tool at satisfying the marketplace's insatiable appetite for a deal without having to do less effective mass advertising, promotions, or costly flyers or coupons. So the challenge is to know up front that you're committing to a lifetime of margin eroding stimuli, right? Business owners have to come to terms with this promotional strategy, and of critical importance is accepting the fact that loyalty members must enjoy richer and better benefits than non-members. So you have to be careful that you don't create this very costly game of one-upmanship where mass advertising promotes a deal to everyone and then loyalty members get that deal plus the added discount. So one way around that is just advertise the promotions to members and use that as an incentive to get non-members to enroll in the program so that they too can take advantage of it. Finally, I'll talk about infrastructure. This is the seventh and final criteria. Most brands lack sufficient IT resources to build loyalty infrastructures that will be meaningful. They don't know how to add the necessary technology required to support these programs. And you need things like adjudication engines. You need CRM and analytics software to facilitate personalized messages. You need a whole suite of tools like a point of sale hardware, member-only websites, membership databases, integrations with customer call centers, social media pages, etc. And then after you build all this stuff, you need humans that actually know how to use it and have the bandwidth to really enable the loyalty marketing activities. So as a point of reference, Best Buy's Reward Zone program had a dedicated 4-person team of loyalty program marketing managers, a half dozen analysts to run different promotions and do reporting, an ad agency with 5 people just doing creative, an IT manager on site, and an IT vendor partner to manage the infrastructure. So it really does take a village to create a world-class program, and significant resources are required to manage it, oversee it, ensure compliance, and maximize the benefits. So make sure that you have completed a very thorough cost-benefit analysis with all of the fully loaded costs to create and maintain a program before proceeding. My guess is that most people who regret the program they have today do so because they woefully underestimated the amount of infrastructure required to support it. I need to wrap up. So in closing, loyalty programs, they're a big bet. You're betting on your company's ability to create something that is so compelling that your customers will take notice of it and they will willingly choose to participate in it. You're betting that you're going to be able to execute that program well enough to keep people engaged year after year. And you're betting that this level of effort is going to produce a better ROI than any other alternative that you can possibly think of to do with that money. This is high-stakes gambling, and it is absolutely worth it. I am a believer in it if done well. The research is clear that loyalty programs can improve customer engagement. Some hot-off-the-press research by the Bond Loyalty Group showed that 65% of loyalty program members are increase their spend and have increased their spend in order to capitalize on loyalty benefits that they find highly desirable. And 73% are more likely to recommend brands if they are fans of what their loyalty program offers. So if you have an interest in loyalty program, we have a bit of a one-day audit that we'd love to take your company through. It assesses the 7 key criteria that we just briefly ran you through, and at the end of a 24-hour period, I think would give you a great deal of confidence of whether this was a good idea or a bad idea for you, or if you have a program, whether you should keep it with slight modifications or whether you should bite the bullet and pull the plug on it. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Brett.
Right on. Thank you very much, Chris. We've got a bunch of questions in here, and we've still got a few minutes left. I did want to talk just for 2 seconds while the last few questions are coming in about our annual summit, the gathering. Some of you may be familiar with it. We did want to make a promotional offer to the people that attended the webinar today. So if you register for the event, which we're expecting to be amazing again this year, the gathering is a summit that we host once a year in Banff, and where we bring together the biggest advertisers, marketers, and branding experts from all over North America. The keynotes this year are Guy Kawasaki and Jeannie Bliss. Past winners have been Airbnb, Vice, Old Navy, Nintendo, some of the biggest brands that all of us know. If you're interested in attending or you want some more information, feel free to reach out to me directly. But we did want to take just a second to throw that out there. So let's just jump quick into a couple of questions here. I've got one from Patricia. Chris, should loyalty programs be an extension of a product, or should they make the product better? Where should the program start and end?
Should loyalty programs be, what was it, an extension of what?
Should the loyalty program be an extension of a product, or should they make the product better? Where should the program start and end?
Yeah, I mean, typically, I wouldn't say, I'm hung up, I think, on the word product, because typically loyalty programs are an extension of a brand that sells multiple products or services. And so I'm racking my brain thinking of like a product that in and of itself would have a loyalty program. I think going back to the idea of brand differentiation, in a perfect world, people would say, I love that brand because of this, and the loyalty program could be one of the thises. So nobody loves Harley because they have an ownership group, but the ownership group is what makes being a Harley member stick, right? So I think our problem with most loyalty programs is they are too tangential. They feel like bolt-on afterthoughts, largely tied to save an extra buck or two, rather than it is what makes me love the brand and all that they're doing. I think Sephora is actually a good example of that, where again, it's a commoditized space with makeup, but being a Sephora member makes the shopping experience and the retail experience far better than somebody that just came to have a transaction. I need to buy some lipstick.
I got another one here from Dusty in San Francisco. What's your advice on how we should be marketing our loyalty program?
I think that, again, it's not a acquisition play, so I don't think it's a big deal. You always see the press releases of so-and-so. Chipotle just did, right? Chipotle just came out with a loyalty program for the summer. Again, I don't think that's why people are going to choose to shop you if they're not shopping you already. So I think a loyalty program is best served in a one-on-one capacity. Do it within the four walls of your store, or do it on your website for people that are already visiting you. I don't think you should be a lot of mass advertising touting that you have a loyalty program. But I think you should also have one. I'm not personally a fan of some of these real secret ones. Evidently, Chick-fil-A has like a secret program out there, or even some of the Neiman Marcus stuff with Encircle, or the AMX Black Card. I think if not enough people don't know about it, they can't change their behavior enough to aspire to achieve it. So it should be a bit of a carrot that says, I want these benefits, so I'm gonna do more to earn them.
I have another question here from Nancy. She wants to know, do you know of any CPG brands that have brilliant loyalty programs?
No. I know lots of CPG brands that have tried. Goldfish comes to mind, Jif Peanut Butter. But the problem is that they're too far removed from the capture of the data. So, for me to on the back of a cereal box or on some, rebate card in the package, go in and try to register so that you now know who I am, that the compliance rate just falls too far off. And so CPGs, I think, would be a good example of trying to maybe find, now if you think of something like a GoPro, for example, if that qualifies as a CPG, they've done other community building things that I think are amazing, and they don't label it a loyalty program. There's not a currency, but there are member benefits, and there is recognition, and there's access to things. So we've tried. I've been at General Mills headquarters. We've tried to find ways to make it work with CPGs, and that's a very hard task.
There wasn't much mention of third-party rewards or loyalty programs, examples like Air Miles, where other brands or retailers can adopt them. Is there a point of view or an opinion on those particular programs and whether or not a company should get on board with those?
Yeah, I'm not a fan at all. And, I moved to Canada 6 years ago, and Aeroplan was the bee's knees, and everybody wanted to know if I was on the Aeroplan program. I'm a huge fan of strategic alliances that allow members to benefit from strategic rewards. So if my clothing store wanted to allow me to use Aeroplan miles to get free travel, I think that's great. I don't like the fact that it's an outsourced program where the Aeroplan is the beneficiary of that, I believe, more so than the retailer themselves. And it gets complicated in terms of all the CRM strategies. I think it's as obvious as ask a customer, which program do you belong to? And if the guy says, well, I'm an Aeroplan member more than I'm a Shell gas station member, and Aeroplan's winning that conversation, not the gas station. And yet the gas station's, I think, doing all the work and funding all the money. So it's a two-part question. Creating strategic partnerships is awesome, but these big consortium loyalty-type currencies that promise you access to a whole bunch of other people's rewards, I think you can build a better program yourself for less effort and less cost.
One last one from Angie in Chicago. Should all your programs, events, promotions always tie back to your loyalty program in some way, or should you let your loyalty program stand on its own?
I think that goes back to I don't like the word all. I don't think anything should always be that way. I do think that, a Marriott Rewards, an American Airlines Advantage program, et cetera, I do believe, mostly to avoid the double dip where, you can't offer something to everybody and you account for that in your margin hit, and then you have to give your loyalty currency on top of that. So I do like the idea that you say interacting with us, the people that get the best advantages of the full experience of what we have to offer are our loyalty programs members, and therefore most of your things, I think, should be geared toward your most loyal members, as opposed to some acquisition strategy that was intended to get people to shop you for the first time.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris, and everyone that joined us today. Just to wrap things up here again, we'll be packaging the recording and making it available for everyone who was on the line with us today. I hope everyone found something of interest, and any of the questions that we didn't get a chance to answer will be responded to directly after the wrap-up of the webinar. So we look forward to hosting you again in the next couple of months with another part of the Enlightenment series, and everyone enjoy your weekend. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you for being here.